please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Debt-ridden IL&FS seeks shareholders' approval for a rights issue and also tables a proposal to sell assets. Sources in SBI say the bank's board is yet to approve a 3,500 crore rupee loan. CARE Ratings downgrades IL&FS borrowing and debt instruments to junk.
When the bond yields crossed 8%, we were definitely concerned.
Economic Affairs Secretary admits that the government was concerned when 10-year bond yields crossed 8%, also assures the government is watching the IL&FS situation closely and promises specific steps in due course. The top management at Bandhan Bank will address investors shortly. This comes a day after RBI imposed curbs on the bank for promoters failing to bring their stake down to 40% as per licensing conditions. A day after outgoing CEO Rana Kapoor promised not to sell a single share in Yes Bank, CARE Ratings puts the bank under credit watch list. The stock has lost nearly 50% in the last 1 month. An unarmed Apple executive is shot dead by a policeman on patrol in Lucknow. The cop claims self-defense, but the family blames the state government. Well, those are the headlines that we're tracking at this hour. Good afternoon, I'm Nitya Balakrishnan and you're watching Business Saturday on CNBC TV18. Straight then to the top story that we're tracking this evening. Debt-ridden IL&FS shields its annual general meeting today to seek shareholders' approval for a rights issue and to sell assets to boost liquidity. The board is also in a huddle to discuss potential fundraising plans. In a video statement after the AGM, the company's MD laid out the revival plan and says that he also hopes shareholders will approve their plans to restore normalcy.
In today's annual general meeting of ILFS, we addressed several of the issues that have been concerning our shareholders. These issues revolve around how we can restore normalcy to our operations and create the kind of work that we have been doing till date. The elements of our strategy had 3 parts. Number 1, to have a successful rights issue which would generate and enable the company to recapitalize itself. Number 2, to sell assets which we have built over the last few decades in order to ensure that the value can be upstreamed and used to repay our creditors. And number 3, to be able to get a liquid line of credit to support our repayments of our debtors till our asset sale cycles begin. These strategies were explained in some detail to our shareholders, and I ended the AGM by seeking their support for our proposal. I also thank them for the support that they have historically given us, and I'm very hopeful that we are able to meet their expectations.
Let's bring in Ritu Singh, who's joining us to actually decode the IL&FS saga. Ritu, we just heard from the managing director, but what really are the potential options before the company now? Remember, we also saw CARE Ratings downgrade the company's debt instruments and borrowing to junk earlier.
Absolutely. IL&FS has been sitting on a debt of over 91,000 crore rupees, and there have been a series of defaults by the company since the early September on various papers that it owes, and which is why, now you've seen all the shareholders huddled together. Today was a board meeting of the company, which is now being held. There was an annual general meeting held earlier today, and the company has outlined, actually reiterated its strategy to raise capital. One, of course, the board has approved about 4,500 crore rupees as rights issue. They also said that they plan to reduce this loan burden by up to 30,000 crore rupees by divesting various assets that they hold over the next couple of years. The 3-pronged strategy really that we heard, the MD and CEO outline, that is, first, of course, there are 25 projects that the company intends to sell. It also claims that about 14 of those 25 projects, they've already received some offers. Besides that, they will also take 2 to 3 years to unlock pools of liquidity for the company. This comes amid steps that the government has also announced that its largest shareholder, LIC, will not let the company fail, so there will be capital support provided for them. The second prong of this strategy also involves finding liquidity in the meantime before even the asset sale cycle begins. So these are the key things that were highlighted by the board of the company today. We're still waiting to hear what happens to that 3,500 crore rupees of loan that the company seeks to raise from one of its shareholders, that is SBI. Because as per our sources, the board of SBI is yet to approve that proposal because the company is still in financial doldrums and the bank does not want to be seen lending money to a company like that, and therefore they want to see a concrete proposal for revival on the table before they agree to loan such a sum to the company. So that is something we're still waiting to hear. Of course, the board meeting should be ending in some time from now, and we'll bring you more updates after that.
Absolutely, Ritu. We will come back to you for key updates as and when that board meeting ends. But keeping it with this story, Economic Affairs Secretary S.C. Garg told CNBC TV18 that the centre is watching the IL&FS situation very closely and promised specific steps in due course.
There's been no meeting on ILFS today. Second, the government does keep a close watch on what is happening on the ILFS. It's a valuable company. It's present in the infrastructure space. There's a lot of PPP projects which this company is doing, and it has got systemic importance. And therefore, government is rightly concerned with what's happening and is monitoring the situation very, very closely. The finance minister said this a couple of days back. What specific measures would be taken and when would be sort of taken in due course?
Okay, can you give us some indication, sir? Are we talking about a week, 10 days, longer? Because that is the big fear in the market, sir, or what happens to IL&FS and the consequences of a ripple impact on account of it.
At this stage, I would only say that that assessment is on. Situation is being monitored. We are evaluating various options, and as soon as one is in a position to develop what is the right kind of action to be taken, the government will announce that.
Keeping it with the banking and financial space, many of the NBFCs do not have a strong framework and good governance standards. That's the word coming in from the chairman of Piramal Group, Ajay Piramal. Talking about the crisis in the NBFC sector with CNBC TV18's Nisha Podar, Piramal added that the IL&FS issue is what triggered the downfall and that he has not looked at any investment opportunity in the company. Here's an excerpt of that exclusive conversation.
More than the stocks, I think we should understand what's happening in the NBFC sector. We had a meeting of analysts for half a day on the 30th of August where there were more than 300 fund managers and analysts. And when I was speaking to them, this is one big risk that I saw in the sector. I said that if there is any blow up in an NBFC, that will affect the whole sector.
Yes.
And why did I say that there could be a blowout? Because one is, I find that many of them don't have high governance standards.
Okay.
The second thing is that if you see, many of them are not really worried about the asset quality as much as it is because of the valuation. Because promoter stakes in some of these companies is either absent or it is so low that people just want to cash out. Okay. And this is what has actually happened today. I mean, when you look at what triggered this whole crisis in the market, it was because what happened with ILFS. There was no promoter there.
Right.
The stakes are so low, and therefore, I think the asset quality is questionable.
You have looked at IL&FS as a buyout candidate in the past. Now that is the company suffering right now. Many investors have been looking at it. They will also be looking at a rights issue. Is it also the right time for you to enter as an investor or a buyer now? Would you take advantage of this opportunity at this time?
So first of all, we keep looking at many businesses and every day there's a new proposal that we look at. It doesn't mean that we're going to go ahead with these proposals. As of now, we have not looked at ILFS in this present state, and we do not have any intention of doing that.
Meanwhile, the Reserve Bank of India has cracked the whip on Bandhan Bank after the promoters failed to meet the licensing condition of reducing their stake to 40% in 3 years. This means that Bandhan Bank cannot open any new branches without RBI's prior approval, and the remuneration of the MD and CEO has been frozen at current levels. Kotak Mahindra Bank is also staring at a December deadline for cutting the promoter's stake to about 20%. Let's bring in Lata Venkatesh, who's joining us here with more details. Lata, what exactly does this mean for Bandhan Bank, and what message does it also send out to Kotak then?
Well, literally, Reserve Bank has thrown the rule book at Bandhan Bank and implicitly at Kotak Bank as well. The non-operative holding company, which is the promoter of Bandhan, has 82% stake and should have brought down the stake to 40 in 3 years of getting the license. But Bandhan didn't, and now Reserve Bank has not allowed them branch expansion and change in the remuneration of the MD. It is branch expansion which will hurt them even more. Now, Bandhan's complaint has been that SEBI rules require that after listing for 1 year, the promoter cannot bring down his stake, and they listed only on March 27th this year. But legal experts told us that SEBI always maintains that when a sector regulator has a different rule, the sector regulator's rule prevail over its own rule. So maybe that argument will not hold much water, and Reserve Bank would have probably explained this to Bandhan. We do not know. Net, the current market cap is 67,000 crores. If 40% of that has to be sold off, then it's actually 30,000 crores of shares that come into the market. That's not an easy job for the promoter to sell off anytime soon. And until he doesn't do that, Bandhan Bank cannot expand except with the approval of the Reserve Bank. The message to this is to Uday Kotak, who also has to bring down his stake to 20 from 30. His effort to do it through preference shares issuance did not meet with RBI approval. So chances are, come December 2018, when his deadline ends, Kotak will also be served a notice that branch expansions will not be allowed, remunerations cannot be changed. So this will be taken negatively by the markets on Monday, and both Bandhan and Kotak Bank shares are likely to be sold off by their investors.
Lata, appreciate you joining us with all those details. Onwards then, from Bandhan Bank to Yes Bank, CARE Ratings has put the bank on credit watch list just days after RBI asked current MD and CEO Rana Kapoor to step down by the end of January next year. Just yesterday, Rana Kapoor took to Twitter and said that he will never sell his shares in the company. He said, and I quote, "Even after I demit office as MD and CEO of Yes Bank, I will never ever sell my Yes Bank shares," end quote. We also learned from sources that Madhu Kapoor sold 3.5 lakh shares in Yes Bank on the 21st of September. The sale would have diluted the Madhu Kapoor and family stake in the bank, remember, to just about 9.28%. Now, with an eye on the fiscal deficit, the government yesterday cut its FY19 borrowing program by 70,000 crore rupees. The centre had estimated borrowing of a little over 6 lakh crore rupees in the budget. Now, that will be scaled down to about 5.35 lakh crore rupees. For the second half of this financial year, markets, remember, were expecting the government to borrow close to 2.68 lakh crore rupees, but it announced borrowing of only 2.47 lakh crore rupees. The government asserted that there will be no cut to capital expenditure and also added that the fiscal deficit target of 3.3% is completely on track. Economic Affairs Secretary ruled out any potential fiscal slippage as well. And speaking about the situation in the bond market, Garg also added that the government was concerned when yields crossed the 8% mark.
See, our estimations on revenues as well as on expenditure front have been done very carefully. The other day, Prime Minister reviewed it. Finance Minister also announced on this. And our deeper analysis of this suggests that we will not have any shortfall in aggregate on revenue front, and we'll be able to manage for the expenditure without affecting any cut. There is always some natural reduction in expenditure that would always take place. This would also take place this year also.
Okay.
And the additional expenditure requirement, we would be able to accommodate out of that. So on the fiscal math, we stay closed.
How concerned have you been by what we've seen happen as far as the bond markets are concerned, specifically with the yields? And has there been a conscious effort on the part of the government to, in fact, go in for this reduction as far as the borrowing program is concerned, to try and signal to the market?
See, there are several elements which play their part in the bond yields. And when the bond yields crossed 8%, we were definitely concerned. And we have said this, that these bond yields are not justified by fundamentals and all. And therefore, let us do whatever we can to positively influence them, and also work with the other elements to see that those are taken care of as well. So there are several factors, but this is quite a significant and important one. So we hope that this will have its own positive contribution to make in bringing or influencing the bond yields in the right direction.
Okay, that's an unequivocal statement coming in from you that at 8% odd in terms of yields, the government was uncomfortable, and this is a way of signaling to the market to try and shore up sentiment and calm the markets down. But let me go back again to the oil question, sir. And I go back again to the question because the possibility now of the government stepping in with some measures to try and reduce the burden on the consumer by way of an excise duty cut, which so far hasn't happened. You talked about some measures. What kind of measures can we expect now, and what kind of headroom do you have?
No, I don't think I would say anything on the oil issue today. Much has been spoken.
But there was a meeting today, sir, which the oil ministry officials, finance ministry officials, including you were all a part of that meeting that took place today. The oil secretary was there with the finance minister. So I'm guessing that there has been some discussion on the way forward on tackling this issue.
No, let me, that was for a different purpose. We are evaluating possibility of oil companies accessing foreign borrowings on more longer term basis.
Okay.
To improve on the capital flows. As you know, we have been trying to deal with the entire foreign exchange questions in a three-pronged way. We are dealing with the current account by taking these measures on non-essential imports, as well as to promote exports, etc. So that is one. The second one is to shore up the capital inflows. Several measures were announced earlier on ECBs. This was also part of that process to improve flows on capital account.
Okay.
And third, obviously, is, which is not the occasion now, that if something is to be done to take care of the reserves position, but that's not needed at this moment. So this was as part of that effort, nothing to do with the oil prices.
Since you talked about the measures that the government has taken when it comes to both the current account deficit as well as the rupee, sir, let me specifically talk to you about both those. Because, you know, there is consensus with experts that we've spoken with that the import curbs that have been announced so far is not really going to have any meaningful impact to either rein in the current account deficit or really move towards any meaningful kind of import substitution. So the larger question is, was this the first installment? Is something more coming? Is there a second list that's being prepared?
These are the consumer products. These are those products for which the domestic capacity exists. This alters the relative positions, and we seriously expect that that would have significant notable impact, and the consumption would shift to the domestically produced goods, and therefore it may not be 15 billion, but there would be some material impact. And please remember, 1% of the current account deficit actually means about $25 billion. So anything which can affect $5 to 7 or $8 billion would also have a material impact on the current account situation.
What is the estimation now, sir, as far as the current account deficit is concerned? People are now working with a number of close to 2.8%, closer to 3%. What are you working with in terms of the current account deficit?
No, we can't have any specific number, but last year it was 1.9% of the GDP as current account deficit. We had flows of $44 billion into the reserves last year. So 2% is very healthy level of current account deficit for a country like India, which needs capital flows from outside. If it goes to 3% or 2.8%, all it means, as I said, is about $25 billion extra that we can always manage by taking, as I said, these three-pronged steps. Take care of, to some extent, on the current account, take care in the capital account. So that's quite a manageable situation.
Shifting gears, let's focus on a key international update that's coming in. At least 384 people were killed and hundreds injured after a powerful earthquake sent a tsunami barreling into the Indonesian island of Sulawesi. After the 7.5 magnitude earthquake, water smashed into buildings and swept away homes in the coastal city of Palu, which is home to over 350,000 people. Hundreds had gathered on the beach to celebrate a festival, and they were simply swept aside by 18-foot monster waves. And back closer to home, an unarmed Apple executive has been shot dead by a policeman on patrol in Lucknow. The policeman is claiming self-defense, but the victim's family is blaming the state government. Uttar Pradesh Police Chief has just said that this was a crime and there was excessive use of force by the policeman and law was definitely violated. Let's bring in Pranshu Mishra, who's joining us from Lucknow now. Pranshu, thanks so much for joining in. When exactly did this incident take place and what really happened?
Well, this unfortunate incident occurred late night at around 1:30 a.m. in Gomti Nagar area. Now, Gomti Nagar is one of the posh areas with several offices in the vicinity. Now, there this incident has taken place, and initially there was a clear attempt on the part of Lucknow police to give it some sort of a spin, whereby trying to character assassinate the Apple executive who was in fact driving the car along with one of his female colleagues. But now, after this huge uproar and the anger which this incident has seen, senior officials have clearly come forward to say that there was absolutely no need for the cop to open fire. He hasn't sustained any injuries. And it's a late service protocol that unless and until you are assaulted upon or a firearm is used on someone in uniform, he or she can't retaliate. Those norms were clearly flouted, resulting in this tragic incident. Now, Vivek is survived by two young daughters and his wife. And the family clearly feels that there's still a lot of fishy. The circumstances in which he was shot dead, they are really not, adding up to the entire defense or the argument which the police is claiming, and therefore they are demanding a CBI probe. Government on this part has recommended an SIT probe headed by an IG level officer. But both these, the constables, the beat constables, they have been charged under section 302 of IPC, which is the murder charge. They have been arrested. What we are hearing also is that probably some departmental action in terms of dismissal from service, that can also take place. But clearly, the government has been left at face. UP police has been left a lot embarrassed by the manner in which a common civilian, someone who has absolutely no criminal record, has been shot dead on the streets of Lucknow.
Absolutely, Pranshu. Truly unfortunate indeed, the incident that has occurred in Lucknow. Now, moving on to some news that you and I can use. Apple's brand new iPhone XS and iPhone XS Max are finally up for sale in the Indian subcontinent. And let me remind you that the starting price of these devices is 99,900 rupees and goes up to about 1,44,900 rupees for the 512 GB variant of the iPhone XS Max. CNBC TV18's Megha Vishwanath, as always, unboxes the two devices. That's redefining premium on today's edition of Tech Toys. Here's a look at that.
Hi guys, and welcome to the CNBC TV18's Tech Toys unboxing edition of the iPhone XS and the iPhone XS Max. These are the two new devices that Apple has now launched finally in India. 3 words sum up these two phones: bigger, faster and more expensive. But let's start with the most premium, the iPhone XS Max. As you can see, this model packs in a 6.5-inch screen, making it Apple's biggest iPhone that has ever been launched. And the base model starts at 64 GB, but what I have here with me is a 512 GB variant. First things first, let's fire up the device, and as you can see, I have the gold edition with me of the iPhone XS Max. While the phone starts up, let's take a look at what's inside the box. Apart from the phone, you have a USB power adapter, a Lightning to USB cable, and Apple's brand new EarPods with Lightning connector. If you need a separate Lightning connector, you will have to pay an additional $9 for that to use it with your other earphones. 3 words describe this phone perfectly. It's bigger, it's faster, and it's definitely more expensive. Let's move on to the younger cousin, the iPhone XS. You know the drill, so let's skip straight to the device. So the XS packs in a 5.8-inch screen, and it's no exaggeration when I say that it looks exactly like the iPhone X. Much like the iPhone XS Max, this too packs in an advanced processor and a dual 12-megapixel wide plus telephoto lens on the back. Keep in mind that these are the most expensive iPhones that Apple has ever launched. So the base model for the iPhone XS Max would cost you 1,09,900 rupees, whereas for the XS it will cost you 99,900 rupees. Should I say only? Maybe not. So guys, now that we've unboxed the iPhone XS Max and the iPhone XS, I'm going to be using these devices as my daily driver and bringing you the full review very soon on CNBC TV18's Tech Toys, so keep watching this space.
With that, we've absolutely timed out on this edition of Business Saturday, but keep it with CNBC TV18 as news and updates continue all evening long. Goodbye and thanks for watching.